Today we review some numbers, boys. Some numbers about rating, the most played classes. Is this expansion any good or popular for that matter? We'll compare these numbers to the old numbers, including Shadowlands numbers. We're also going to look at some interesting stuff going on with Mythic Plus and all that other shit. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go. This season's Mythic Plus mount, the mount that you're going to want to get before this season's over, is the Wix Lead. That's right, it drops in Mythic and Mythic Plus difficulty only, much like the mech suit was in Stone Vault. This season it's Dark Flame Cleft, and this is what the mount looks like. Nice little, what do you call this, Naked Mole Rat mount, I guess is what it's based off of. Not bad looking. It's a decent looking mount. Not as cool as the mech suit from Season 1, but still something that you might want to get if you're a mount chaser, because this is limited time, right? Only when this dungeon is available in Mythic and Mythic Plus. I'm sure this will come back around, though, after the season ends. If you want to upgrade your Khazalgar wormhole, right, here it is. This is how you're going to do it. If you are an engineer and you've got the little wormhole thing, there is a way to upgrade it so it can, in fact, take you to Khazalgar. You're going to want to do that by getting the Crumbler Schematic Wormhole Generator Undermine. You can loot this recipe in a building between the Vatworks and the Heaps. So right here on your map, this is where it's located. You can loot this here in the little treasure pile and get yourself the ability to port yourself over to Khazalgar. Sorry, I should say Undermine. Trinket hotfixes live on new servers. If you have a Trinket, a new Trinket from the raid or this Mythic Plus season, and it does damage, odds are its damage has been buffed. There was a shit ton of buffs across the board. I'm not going to read through all of these. This article, I'll link it in the chat and link it down below for the YouTube video. Tons of buffs for basically all the Trinkets that deal damage, up to 20% buffs across the board. If you have a Trinket that hits, it's going to hit a little bit harder. Sam the Ripper, that would be a great Trinket name. This is a ton of shit going through. Again, look below the screen or look in the chat stream or below this video on YouTube if you're watching it there to get all that shit. Is Tomb buffed? I don't know. I have no fucking idea. Okay, most popular classes to play in the game right now. This is not indicative of the best classes in the game, so I'm going to preface that because you're actually going to see kind of the opposite going on here. Right now, obviously, the most popular class in the game, a surprise, surprise, Paladin. We've talked about this before. Paladins are absolutely loved in this fucking game. I don't know what it is, why people love Paladins so much, but they sure as hell do. So Paladins are number one, 12.3% of the player base playing some variation, shape, or form of Paladin. Then we got Druid coming up next. That makes sense. They got 4 different specs, 4 different ways to play the game. Druid's always been popular. Hunter coming up the rear there at 9.9%. Yeah. Who doesn't want to see their pull pulled before the counter hits 0? So yeah, lots of Hunters in the game. We know that. Warrior is a classic standard. Shaman, actually, surprisingly enough, 8.5%. I didn't expect them to be in the top 5, but there they are. Top 5 most played classes. Mage, Priest, Death Knight, Demon Hunter, Warlock. Monk down here at 5.9%, and the reason why I'm saying don't take this as you know what the DPS charts are, because it's not the same. Monk right now, Windwalker, is the top DPSer, while Paladin is really like mid-tier in terms of DPS right now with Retribution. So there you go. The indication that most played class is the most DPS. No, not the case here. And then Evoker at the bottom. Yeah, they're the new class. They're going to be the least played. We see Rogue right here as well. Rogue, I would say Rogue, Mage, Hunter oftentimes fluctuate. You'll see with the different what's it called, DPS rankings. Right now, Hunter's probably doing the best of the 3, Mage second, and then Rogue has kind of fallen off so far this season, but they'll make a comeback. They always do. So there it is. There's your class numbers so far. Let's look at the numbers overall, okay, how the numbers are looking for raid and everything else. Get a little indication of what the player base looks like, right, because we don't get subscriber numbers anymore, so this is kind of the indication of how things are looking for the player base so far. Ret Pallies wear padded helmets. No comment. Mythic Plus, active character data. So here it is, your Mythic Plusers for the season. And looking at this, the first thing you're going to notice, this is Mythic Plus active characters per season over time. These are characters running Mythic Plus. Look at this. The first thing you're going to notice, Dragonflight, far higher participation than the War Within. Now, we see the War Within Season 1 compare the Dragonflight Season 1. Let me enhance this a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. Clearly, you'll see that Dragonflight... Oh, Jesus, we're getting scuffed again. Dragonflight was more popular. Dragonflight was more popular, at least for Mythic Plus. Now, I say what you want about Dragonflight's story or not. I've said it before. Dragonflight had some of the best seasons of Mythic Plus we've ever had in this game. In terms of, like, easiness, ability to just jump in, get in. The dungeons themselves were pretty good. Yeah, it had its mistakes here and there, but overall, I think Dragonflight had some really good Mythic Plus seasons, and I think this is a clear indication of that. Looking at this current season, yeah, it's the lowest we've seen of any of these, right? I mean, comparing it to Season 2 of Dragonflight, you're always going to see a drop-off between Season 1 and Season 2, because you got the, the Andes who just joined for the beginning of the expansion, then drop off after that. But just looking at the 2 seasons, yeah, that's a pretty big drop there. So what do these numbers mean if we try to break it down here? Let's see what the article says. It's quite obvious that the activity in Mythic Plus in general did decrease for both expansions, for both expansions from the first to the second season. Yeah, that's expected. For Dragonflight, the drop-off is looking kind of decent early. There was just a 16.85% fewer active characters in Season 2 after 19 days, but things are different if we look at the long-term development after 21 weeks, the duration for Dragonflight Season 1. We find that Dragonflight Season 2 stands at 22.77% fewer active players. In addition, we have to keep in mind that the starting around 40 days into Dragonflight Season 1, additional characters were created by Chinese players. Oh, that's right. Yes, the rejoining of China and everything happened. That's right. I forgot they lost WoW and then they regained it there. If we compare daily data for both seasons, we can make an estimate that at 19 days into Dragonflight Season 2, Amanda coming in with the Prime sub 7 months. Thank you so much. I just called him Amanda. It's Ahmed Hero. Thank you so much, Amanda. I don't know why I said. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for the sub. You just got name generated out of nowhere. Thank you, 7 months, Priman. If we compare that daily data for both seasons, we can make an estimate that 19 days into Dragonflight Season 2, around 100,000 additional characters were active by the Taiwanese. So if we count for that, it dropped off about 23.44%. Now, looking at the War Within seasons, let's apply the same comparisons. We see a sharp decline of 30.85%. Also, a rather weak start, closer to negative 40%. This can be attributed to the bad experiences and delayed or missing tuning during Season 1. Yeah, Season 1 did some damage. I think you can blame Season 2 participation on Season 1 because Season 2, honestly, to me, is much, much better. Much better intro, much better loot in terms of when the loot starts, much better affixes, better dungeon pool. Everything about it is better, but it's got less participation. I think that's because of the damage that Season 1 did. Season 1 really did turn a lot of people off from a Mythic Plus, and then you got the toxicity on top of that. So, well, it'll take a while, I think, to rebuild people's confidence in Mythic Plus. Also, Delves. You got to remember, Dragonflight didn't have Delves. War Within clearly has Delves, which is a great alternative if you don't want to do the group content. And Delves are even better in Season 2 than they were in Season 1 because now you can actually get your crests that can upgrade your gear all the way. Your heroic level gear can be pushed all the way now thanks to the crests that you can get from Delves. So Delves certainly have taken a chunk out of Mythic Plus runners for sure. There's also a large step up in terms of tuning from standard dungeons of world content and its rewards in the first few weeks of Mythic Plus. For the most recent days, we can observe a comparative upward trend. This is also reflected in smaller drop-offs and also the run numbers when comparing both seasons. It will be interesting to see if the season can decrease the gap towards the end. So we're seeing less of a drop-off as the season continues forward as compared to previous seasons. Yeah, we'll see if they do cross over in the end. Overall, let's look at rating data. Mythic Plus is what it is. We've had some damage done in Season 1. But let's see how rating is, because I actually think rating of Season 1 was pretty good. So comparing the numbers here, just off the bat, first reaction, looking at this. Was Shadowlands a better expansion than The War Within? What the fuck's going on here? So Shadowlands had a great start and then quickly dropped off. I always say 9.1 might be the worst patch in the history of WoW. So when we're looking at patches in general, I think 9.1 could be the worst one ever. That was when we got the shards and all that shit that you had to collect. We had, what was it? What raid was it? Sanctum of Domination? In season, it was just bad. It was just bad all around. Bad experience. All the systems were completely scuffed. Not a good time. So season 1 of season 2, I should say, of Shadowlands was worse than The War Within. Season 1, I guess, was better. But looking at Dragonflight participation, you see the upward trend here, right? Completely falling off from Dragonflight and then catching back up a little bit. This is the first boss kill, by the way, so this doesn't show like how deep people are pushing in raids, but just who the fuck's doing raiding. who's actually getting in here and at least killing the first boss. That would show a good indication of participation in raid. The War Within, I guess you could say less of a drop-off, right? If you want to take any kind of positivity out of this, you look at BFA Season 1 to Season 2, pretty damn big drop-off there. Same with Shadowlands, but for the War Within, less so, right? And then Dragonflight, you actually saw an increase, which is pretty crazy. But less of a drop-off here, so maybe that's a good indication of, you know, people kind of sticking around and actually playing. Korthia gives me nightmares. Yeah, who doesn't, for sure. Who doesn't have nightmares from Korthia? As I said, probably the worst patch in the history of WoW. So looking at this stuff, in general, these stats reflect a monumental loss of players during Shadowlands. Yeah, the damage is still being felt, that's for sure. As a combination of content drought, post-lockout loss of interest, and the Activision Blizzard scandal, within Dragonflight, we can observe the absence and loss of activity, and therefore subscribers during the expansion, which was also highlighted during the Game Developers Conference talk from John Haidt. The first War Within raid tier continued this trend in early weeks. One major change is definitely the effects and reasons for players to raid in general would also be the addition of the Catalyst system. That's true. That's true. Why enter if you have a reliable source of tier gear? So yeah, sometimes Blizzard adding in stuff that increases our quality of life means you got to do less runs. So certainly people will be doing less there. And you don't have to raid anymore to get tier set, right? You could be just doing, as I said before, even delves or whatever it is, and convert that gear into tier. No longer is raid your only source of tier. So yeah, the Catalyst was introduced during Shadowlands. I forgot what it was called back then, and then you got yourself the versions of it today. So yeah, that could certainly be a reason. I think the War Within raids are pretty darn good for the most part. From expansion to expansion, we see 46.5% more kills in the first raid and 5.99% in the second raid as compared to Dragonflight. We once again have to add in the asterisk that the second raid tier of Dragonflight, an asterisk to the second raid tier of Dragonflight. Within the regional data, we can see around 300 additional raid groups active for the Taiwanese servers. Sure, so that accounts for them. Looking at these numbers, an increase from Dragonflight Tier 2 to the War Within Tier 2 is closer to 9%. So there you go if you're not accounting for the Chinese players joining in. For the War Within specifically, we see similar trends from raid tier to raid tier as we saw from the seasonal Mythic Plus numbers. But compared to Shadowlands and BFA raid numbers, the familiar drop-off is a lot smaller, and that's what I mentioned there. It's from season to season, we saw a much smaller drop-off, which means you're getting a better player retention for sure. In conclusion, regarding the available raid data and the context of a lot more rewarding content outside of just raiding, we can conclude that raiding is on the upward trend, right? If you want to give it a positive spin, sure, that makes sense. More ways to get gear, more ways to get tier have made raid less necessary, which means less people are going to run it. We also see that the War Within is already showing similar patterns to older expansions, but this time the effects are clearly diminished so far, with a 30% loss in Mythic Plus numbers and a 20% loss in raid activity. Once this raid tier and the season are finished, sometime in late August this year, we'll take another look at the metrics and see where they all stand. We'll look at those when those do come out, but interestingly enough, yeah, Shadowlands did some damage, to say the least, and that damage is still being felt. Finally, let's wrap up here with a 20th anniversary edition video. Let's see what this is all about. I don't play a lot of Classic, but I do enjoy these little cinematics here as we have The Return, showcasing the beginning of all 20 years ago. Okay, here we go. Let's see what this cinematic's all about. Oh, a nice little classic. Oh, yeah. Who doesn't love a little classic? Are these made by Hurricane? I think they are. This music's so good. Good old Ragnaros. Yeah, I'm not a Classic enjoyer, but this is pretty hype. What is this? Oh, yeah. It's not Classic without Onyxia. Yep. We'll have that head hanging in our, what's it called? In our champ. Was that Onyxia or was that somebody else? Hold on. Blackwing Lair. Who is this? This is Onyxia, right? Yeah. Am I tripping? Nefarian. Oh, okay. Now, yeah, okay. Nyxia is more purple. Nefarian's darker. Okay. Yeah, well, to me, classic is Nyxia. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, OnlyFangs got wiped out, but yeah, I heard that. OnlyFangs is like disassembling at this point because of the server issues that happened. Supposedly, that DDoS attack was actually targeted to wipe out OnlyFangs. Like that's why it happened. That's the rumor, at least. So yeah, OnlyFangs completely deleted. After that, we'll see how many classic Andys there are still out there playing hardcore and everything else. But anyways, yeah, cool stuff from the 20th anniversary, really, and that is all in terms of news.